Well, guys, welcome back to part 5 of our 8-part series on our playoff previews for this upcoming NHL playoffs. And this is going to be the first of our Western Conference previews. It is between defending Stanley Cup champions and number 1 seed Colorado Avalanche against the wildcard team Seattle Kraken. Man, what a difference you have in these two teams. Team that has been dominant for the last 2-3 years and won the Stanley Cup versus a team that just came into the league a couple years ago and surprised everyone by making the playoffs. This was a team that I had right at the bottom of the standings, going to be in the Bedard hunt, and then wow, Seattle really just surprised the crap out of me. They really lit it up this year and they proved they could score with anyone.
Yeah, Seattle surprised everyone, I think, this year. I don't think a lot of people had this team as a playoff team, and the fact that they made it with 100 points this season is impressive.
Crazy.
Good on them. Really good team, high-scoring team. Could do a little bit better defensively, but we'll talk about that in a second. The Colorado Avalanche, no introduction needed. It's the defending Stanley Cup champion, a very good team.
Yeah, so what we're going to do for you guys today is we're going to break it down, these two teams and our preview here. We're going to go through the offense, defense, goaltending, special teams, and then one X factor for both teams. And finally, we're going to give you our final prediction on what we expect to happen in this series. So let's start us off with the offense here. We're going to start with the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, this offense is not quite the same as it was last year when they went to win the Stanley Cup, but it's still pretty good. You still got Nate MacKinnon out there leading this team. Man, this guy's an absolute beast. The guy got a hat trick in the last game of the year to send his team to the number 1 seed in his division and to even be in this match rather than playing against a team like Minnesota. This guy is mega clutch when it comes towards the playoffs. He always performs. And then you got Mikko Rantanen, career year. He beat Joe Sakic's record for most goals by a Colorado player, 55 goal season. Absolutely dynamic. What a 1-2 punch they have. And then the rest of their offense looks a little different than past years. They got guys like Evan Rodriguez, who has come into this line to try to replace some of the missing pieces they've had, whether it's Gabriel Landeskog gone for injury or Kadri traded away. And then JT Compher, the new number 2 center for this team, playing a ton of minutes. This guy has been playing 20-plus minutes this year, way different than it was last year's playoff run. And then, of course, we got the raid boss himself, Valeria Nichushkin. He missed a lot of this year hurt, but we know this guy brings it in the playoffs, and this guy is a physical beast in the corners fighting for that puck, and he sure has some good scoring touch too.
Yeah, Arturi Lehkonen as well. I don't even.
Oh yeah, that guy was a playoff hero for these guys.
He just came back from an injury not that long ago, and he has proven he has very good chemistry with Mikko Rantanen there. So he's gonna be huge X factor, I feel like, for the Colorado Avalanche offensive front. But on the flip side, for the Seattle Kraken, they have a guy called Matty Beniers, and I'm excited to see this guy play his first NHL playoff
Love
game.
that kid.
This kid is terrific. I don't have too high of expectation for him. I don't think anyone should. He's a rookie. The fact that he is able to, in his first season, experience playoffs is quite something for him, and good on him. I'm very happy for this kid. This kid is a very, very good hockey player. On top of that, they got Bjorkstrand, they got Burakovsky, they got a lot of good players up front. Jordan Eberle, Wenberg. I saw the game yesterday that they played against Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, they can score. They can fire the puck at the net. Jaden Schwartz.
Yeah, I don't know if Burakovsky's going to make it back for this round. He's still on the IR last I looked. But there's a guy I really got to give props to. Quite possibly the most shocking offensive player on this team. And man, does Pittsburgh probably hate themselves right now. And that is Jared McCann.
He looked good.
Wow.
Yeah.
40 goals for Jared McCann.
It's not only that.
Like wild numbers.
When I was watching that game against the Vegas Golden Knights yesterday, he was flying on the left side on the power play. He looks good. He looks fluid. He looks like he has a lot of confidence. Good on him.
When I look at this team's offense overall, it is definitely a well-balanced offense. I mean, you're talking about 3 lines that can really score goals and kind of proved it this year. I mean, this team was scoring with a lot of the great teams in the league. Although I will say, despite the fact this team was scoring at a very high pace, I still got to give the offensive advantage to Colorado, mainly because the high-end talent for Colorado in Nate MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen is just so much higher than anything Seattle can produce.
No offense to the Seattle Kraken. They're a very good offensive team as a unit, but they just don't, like Scott alluded, there's no star power on that offensive unit. None. If your best offensive player right now is Jordan Eberle and Matty Beniers. Is not going to match
Well,
guys
and
like
McCann now.
I mean, and McCann, but they're just not. They don't have the horsepower to match. Obviously, Nathan McKinnon, the Mikko Rantanen, and even Valery Nichushkin. No way.
Moving on to the defense here, this is where we start to see the biggest gap between these two teams and why we could see the difference in the point standings. With Colorado, I mean, no introduction to this man, but we're talking about one of the best defensemen of our generation in Cale Makar. This guy has dealt with a lot of injuries this year, but it looks like he's going to be good to go for game 1 of the playoffs. This guy is just so dynamic offensively, and he's really, really improved his defensive game over the last 2 years. He's really strong in that aspect now, too, for the complete overall defenseman. And then you got his assistant and partner in Devon Toews. This guy is just a number 1 on a lot of teams, probably, if we're being real. Like, his advanced stats are good. His defensive game is good. He passes amazing. Like, this guy's a great facilitator of the puck. And then when you got like the rest of these guys, Bowen Byram, this guy is absolutely elite. He gets a little less credit because he's playing behind Cale Makar and Devon Toews, but Bowen Byram showed us he pretty much was the best defenseman on the ice in last year's Stanley Cup final. And that's not an exaggeration. He was absolutely insane. Highest plus minus of last year's playoffs of any player. Just wild stuff. And then filling it out with Josh Manson, really solid physical player. Samuel Girard, who's probably their 5th or 4th defenseman, which is absolutely cracked to say. And then, I mean, Jack Johnson. I mean, you don't have to ask for a lot. It's the 6th defenseman, guys. Don't take it too seriously.
Yeah, I don't want to take anything away from Seattle Kraken's defense, but there's just no chance there's no teams that can have a chance to compete with Colorado's defense. None. They're just that good. But I'm not gonna take anything away from Seattle. Their defense has some pretty good defensemen there. They have, starting with Adam Larson, a solid
great year.
Having a great year. He's a good defensive defenseman. They have Carson Soucy. They got Jamie Oleksiak, a big guy that they had in the expansion draft. They also have Vince Dunn, who's pretty dynamic, who can move the puck up and down the ice.
Yeah, a quick pause on the Vince Dunn. Yeah. Honestly, Vince Dunn, I thought should have made the All-Star game this year. He played so well. We're talking career year. This is exactly what St. Louis was most afraid of. To give away this guy in the expansion draft and him being this good, I'm being straight up, better than any defenseman on St. Louis.
Imagine if they kept him.
Oh yeah, he's the best defenseman on that team right now.
And having on a group with Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas, I think that will help them.
Oh yeah, they're hating their lives.
But going back to Seattle Kraken, another guy I want to add in, Justin Schultz. I mean, this guy, I've seen him many times in Edmonton here, and he was booed out of the city, but he's playing pretty well over there. So good on him. As a unit, they're playing really well. They just don't have the horsepower to match Colorado.
Yeah, when I look at Seattle's defense, I think the biggest weakness is their defensive game. I think these guys like Schultz and Dunn, they really, really ramped it up offensively. Like, their numbers were career highs for offensive numbers, but it's just the defensive leaks that they give and the chances they give to opposing forwards is kind of the biggest gap, and why I give this advantage defensively to Colorado.
Yep. Now
to the goaltending matchup here. I mean, looking at Colorado, they have a changeover from last year's Stanley Cup winner in Darcy Kempfer. They now have Alexander Georgiev. Man, this guy surprised me. I honestly thought for him to just be a body, someone they put in net this year who was okay, and then they win games 6-5 or 5-4. But no, I was wrong. Georgiev has been so solid for Colorado. I could argue, and I will argue, that he is an upgrade from Darcy Kempfer last year. I think he has played really, really well. And from just the games I've watched, he just stands on his head and keeps his team in it. And I just really impressed by this guy overall.
Yeah, Georgiev is pretty much directly reminds me of Samsonov. Both Russian backup goalies in their previous teams, and now they go into these new teams, and now they upgraded their starting goalies for their respective teams. So that's what they remind me of, and it's a big gap from Seattle's goalies. Unfortunately, they're most likely going to start Grubauer, and I'm not sure. We've seen Grubauer many times, and Colorado knows Grubauer very well because he used to play for them. So it's going to be interesting how it's going to pan out there, but I'm going to give the edge for sure to Colorado in this one.
Yeah, I don't think this one's that close. I'm sorry to Seattle fans. I mean, I really like your team, but Georgiev is the better goaltender.
By a long ways. And on top of that, they know your goalie very, very well.
Oh, yeah. McKinnon's probably takes shootouts against this guy every day for years. So
yeah, so it's going to be interesting. Now we move on to the special teams. As you can see on the charts there, we'll start with the penalty kill. they're both kind of bad. Yeah. So they're both kind of the bottom half of there. But then you look at the power play, that's where you see the big difference. You will see Colorado being up there, number 6 there. And the shocking thing for me personally is that seeing Seattle scoring so many goals, but they're so far down.
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of shows that Seattle's a really good 5-on-5 team this year offensively. They're scoring a lot of 5-on-5 goals. I mean, we've seen Colorado's power play. We know it's absolutely deadly. If I'm Seattle, especially looking at the penalty kill, I don't want to be taking penalties in this series. I mean, you're going to have to go against a really strong unit. Even if it's not at full strength, this is still a really dynamic group. I mean, you got Kale McCarr on the point moving around the puck. You have to worry about him basically as a forward as well as a defenseman. You got Nate McKinnon, who, I mean, just like Energizer Bunny. He can turn it up, man. This guy can skate like insane. And Mikko Rantanen, you're not moving this guy out of the way. If he's there, he's going to move his body in there on the power play. Valerie Nichushkin, same thing. I mean, this is just a whole bunch of beasts on this unit. And then looking at it the other way, Colorado's penalty kill has not been great this year. Seattle changes their power play up a fair bit, I mean, between Unit 1 and Unit 2. But, I mean, you got solid passers like Matty Beniers, who's just proven to be really great. Jared McCann's the guy you got to watch out for. Him and Eberle, basically, are the two guys you got to watch for that shot. But I do think that I can see Colorado really killing it on the special teams advantage in this series.
Yeah, definitely. Now, we got to pick an X factor from each team. Starting with Colorado, which one are you going to pick?
For Colorado, I have to say my X factor is going to be Evan Rodriguez. And that is because this guy has some big shoes to fill. If you look at this team last year, this team had guys like Landeskog and Kadri. And I mean, these are like the second line players who were really kind of carrying the scoring after the Nate McKinnon Rantanen line. And this year, they don't have these guys. They're going to have to find scoring from depth pieces. And Evan Rodriguez is a guy I really look at. I know Valerie Nichushkin's going to be good. He showed it to me last year. I know Lekkonen's going to be good. He was unreal last year in the playoffs. Nate McKinnon, Rantanen, no question. But what I need to see is if a guy like Evan Rodriguez can carry the weight and put up maybe 4 or 5 points in this series, if it goes to 6 games or something like that, something to really add on to the extra offense.
Yeah, my X factor will actually be Devon Toews, just because he's had a down year this year, and I'm used to seeing him dominant. Especially last season, having such a great year last season, even in the playoffs, and how much of a threat he was back there, and how good he defended. I want to see that again from him this year, and he's going to be the big X factor for me. He's got to step up his game for sure.
There.
Yeah.
My X factor from the Seattle Kraken is also my favorite player from the Seattle Kraken, and that's going to be Matty Beniers. I mean, like Owen said, it's hard to know what to expect from a rookie, especially in their first NHL playoffs, but this is a guy who's going to be playing first line center in the NHL playoffs. That is an insanely important role. We're talking about a lot of pressure, and this guy is made for pressure in my mind. I think he's going to excel. They might not win the series, but Matty Beniers is going to show out, and he's going to prove that he can be a top player in this league in the next couple of years.
My X factor for the Seattle Kraken will be Philip Grubauer, because he's playing against his former team, and if this team ever wants to have a chance to win, the goalie needs to be good, and that's all the pressure on him.
Yeah, he's going to get 50 shots a game.
So it's going to, Grubauer, you better be ready for some party.
But all right, guys, we got to get into it. Finally, we're going to give you our predictions on who we think is going to win this series, and I'm going to start off here. I got the Colorado Avalanche winning this in 5 games. I thought about potentially 6, because honestly, I do think Seattle's a solid team. I just think that Colorado is going to want to get this over with quick. They're not going to want to play with their food. And I just think their roster, even though it's lost some pieces, is still too strong.
Yeah, I got Colorado at 5 actually as well, just because they're not going to want to play with their food. They want to get this over with, move on, get as much rest as possible for the guys. And
yeah, too many injuries this year. This team don't want no smoke.
Yeah,
they don't want to wait.
To be honest, they prefer a sweep, but I think Seattle's good enough to win one game.
Yeah, so. I agree. Well, guys, that concludes this playoff preview. We will see you in our next one soon. Take care and have a great day.
Take care. Bye.